Awesome. Hi, Christine. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. Thanks for having me on, Ajay. I'm so excited to do this webinar. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Even we've been really excited to do this because a lot of the people of the co-living community have constantly been asking about marketing and branding their co-living space. So this has been like a very this has been one of the webinars that we've been looking forward to the most. So let's do a round of quick introductions, and maybe after that I can definitely look at giving an introduction of the webinar format so that everyone can understand, like what kind of timelines we're looking at. And after that, we can directly jump on to the show. Sounds good?
Perfect. Sounds
All
good.
right. So let me maybe give a quick introduction about myself to the audience. So I'm Ajay Kumar, co-founder and CEO of the House Monk. We've been in the prop tech space for about 6 years now, primarily building real estate management software based out of India and Singapore, and having clients in most parts of the world. So anyway, that's a little about me. Christine, why don't you have a go at this?
Definitely. So Christine McDannell, CEO, co-founder of Kindred. So management software specific to the co-living industry. We're based in Southern California, and our main markets are actually Europe and North America. So that's why we make such a good team, because you have the other side of the world covered.
Yes. So, thank you so much for that introduction. Now, for our audience today, let me give a quick, itinerary or agenda of how this call or how this webinar is going to go. So, we're going to be starting with a quick 5 to 10 minutes on how co-living companies can potentially tackle the current COVID-19 situation. It's such a relevant topic. Everyone's been pinging all over. So I think right now we have a platform where we have close to about 30, 40 co-living operators. So now might be as good a time as any to, have a quick discussion on that and, potentially give some knowledge resources for them as well. Maybe after that, for another 20 minutes or so, Christine, maybe you can lead with a presentation on how co-living companies can better market and brand themselves. And we'll open out the floor for questions that people might have. So that might be another 15 to 20 minutes towards the end. And the Q&A session need not be restricted only to marketing. So even if people have any questions around how co-living operators can do their best during the current situation with the pandemic, they can ask those questions as well, and we can definitely take a stab at answering that. So that's the agenda. So let's jump right into it. I think we have most of our participants already who've joined. So Christine, take it away.
Yeah, definitely. So let me share my screen real quick here. And let's see here. No, and again, we definitely, obviously we're going to launch into, just so everybody's aware, we started working on this like 3 weeks ago, at least, so, and then, yesterday I added more slides. We definitely want to address the coronavirus, of course. So we'll start with that, because I don't think marketing your co-living space was like on top, it might not be the first thing on your mind. So definitely, I know this time zone was difficult for some of you guys. So I first want to thank you guys for coming on. If you're in, again, we've got people from around the world on this webinar in real time. So I appreciate you guys coming on. And so obviously we want you guys, not just to be surviving right now, but to be thriving during these times. So again, just like Ajay said, write any questions in the chat, anything at all. It doesn't have to be on marketing. So we'll launch right into it. So I love this quote, especially in a time like this. Adversity doesn't build character, it reveals it. So just remember that. You guys, don't hide under the covers right now. Please do not. This is not, I know it's paralyzing some people. It's scary, but please, please, please just push through, be resilient. That's really important at a time like this. Be a wartime general and step up your game. Yeah. So, and here we go. Let's launch right into it. When we send you guys the recording link, we're also going to send you a few blog posts that my team here at Kindred did. We've done one each week, just specific to exactly what's going on, trying to give answers. We brought in a health expert, on virus prevention inside your co-living communities. And so Ajay, I didn't know if you had anything to add to this.
Yeah. So we're currently, we're talking to about 30 co-living operators, and we're compiling a very quick handbook on what is happening in their co-living facility, how is that impacting their business, and what are some mitigation strategies that they're doing to protect themselves against such a situation. And we're just collating all this information and we're putting it out as a handbook. So essentially the thought is that let co-living operators just learn from each other. Hopefully by end of this week we'll have the handbook up and running, and we'll definitely be sharing that with the current audience as well.
Oh, I love that. That's perfect. Okay, great. And then here's a couple extra resources for you guys. I'm one of the board members of the Co-Living Hub, which is a global association. It's a nonprofit. And just yesterday, we launched an open letter to the actual landlords. So we need, again, you guys are gonna receive this link. It'll take you 2 seconds to sign the bottom of it. It's on Medium. And this is what you guys are going to present to all the landlords and the building owners, because what's going to end up happening is, if your guests and residents can't pay rent, then you can't pay your rent, and then they can't pay the mortgage. So it's going to have to be a top-down approach on how this gets corrected. But we gave a bunch of options on this blog post. You just sign the bottom. If we can get, all these co-living operators around the world to sign this would be amazing. And just unite an entire industry. Yep. I truly feel like co-living will come out even better on the other side, but we have to take proactive actions to do that. The last resource I have for you guys is the co-living we're doing. It's funny, Ajay, we were talking yesterday because they were thinking about doing it. And I was like, no, actually, we already have one scheduled. It's the exact same time today as today's webinar, but it's this Thursday. It will be literally, I think we can have up to 100 operators on it. We're going to do it through Zoom. But it's where all of you guys are interacting. You're giving your tips, your tricks, your strategies from around the world. Because again, some countries are completely locked up. Obviously California, they locked up the whole state, just trying to get ahead of things, which I'm grateful for. But again, every country, there's different things going on. So it'll be nice to chat out. So definitely join us for that on Thursday, and we'll have the link. So let's now launch into the marketing part, right? So there's different digital ways you can market your community. Do not get overwhelmed by this slide, but I know there's a lot. I know it looks overwhelming. Just so you guys know, I started in property management back in '98 in California, and I'm super jealous that none of these tools were available back then. So, I'll go through a few of them quickly. And just so you guys are aware, we have incredible partners. I know the Housemonk does also on, if you guys need help creating these digital items or these creative assets. And we're going to talk about branding later on in this webinar in more detail. But, obviously website. I mean, everybody knows we need a website. That's number one, logo design, reputation management. We're going to talk about that in detail in a bit with reviews. Google ads, virtual tours are getting really common. Even, there's a company now that's really great that's able to do virtual tours from renderings. So they do full renderings of your community if you're building out. It's really cool. I just talked to this guy last week, and they're so realistic. Yeah. And it's just, you can walk through the building. Again, if you're renovating a building or building ground up, they can't see, you can't film a virtual tour quite yet, but they do a rendering of the entire place, and then they walk through the whole thing.
Interesting. So let me ask you a question here. Now, let's say that there's a co-living operator who's starting out right now. And when I say starting out, let's say they're starting their marketing efforts right now. Do they have to start by doing all of these things, or do you recommend that they need to start with a few and then scale as they go?
Great question. I would say start with a few. I would definitely say start with a few, because I want you guys to manage those metrics and analyze them, right? And I think if you go all guns blazing with all of these, it's going to be, again, maybe you have a very efficient team and you have a really great way of tracking this, then that's fine. And then you could quickly cut, obviously take the ones that are working better, cut the other ones, track it on a weekly basis. Yeah. So that's a great question. But yeah, it would be overwhelming. I don't know it's very rare that they go out the gate with all of these. Maybe it depends on the size of the building. I know your guys' scale over there is massive. So, but everybody was running.
Point. So the reason why I was asking was also because as a co-living operator, you also need to think about what kind of a marketing team do you need to build, right? And a lot of the points that you've mentioned here, they are very different skill sets. Right now, let's say that an e-brochure skill set, to have that kind of a skill set versus having professional photography done versus, let's say, running ads on Facebook, they're going to be people who have completely different skill sets, right? So maybe can you give some recommendation on the first marketing person that you as a co-living operator hired, so sometimes you might do it as a founder yourself, sometimes you might hire someone for that role, would you recommend hiring a generalist who can do multiple things, or would you recommend hiring a specialist who can maybe just do a couple of the points that you've mentioned over here?
Okay, so I definitely, you guys, if it's just one hire, I would say a content manager. Content,
Mm-hmm.
they're doing all of your content, they're doing your blog posts, they're doing your social media posts, but you're exactly right. That content creator is not going to be a graphic designer typically.
Right.
They're going to be strong at, and so I think content's number one. That would be my
Okay.
first hire.
Okay.
Graphic designer would be my second. A Facebook ad specialist would probably be an SEO specialist, but again, those are usually two different people sometimes.
Right.
Yeah, so you're exactly
you're saying
right.
that number one has to be the content guy.
Without a doubt. Yeah,
All right.
that's your
Okay.
easiest. Yeah,
all right,
that's
that's
the
a good
best
tip.
first hire. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
So yes, so again, so you guys can write these down later. But and the chatbot. I'm a big fan of chatbots. Just make sure you have that team, that content person or anybody on your team, that they're actually available to answer on the chatbot. Those are getting really popular. So, and it's great real-time questions. Yeah, you can answer real time. The brand consistency please, when you guys build, and again, I know that graphic designer was your second hire and they'll kill you if you're not consistent. So we want the same fonts, the same colors. We want extreme consistency throughout everything. Your logo, your brochures, your Facebook page. Too many times, we see different colors being used. And so it's just that consistency is really key.
That's right.
And then please, no generic branding, you guys. It definitely kills experience. You want your concept to have heart and soul. You want it to stand out from the other, especially once the space already seems to be getting a little crowded in certain regions. And so you want to stand out. Actual real estate developers and investors that have always just done basic real estate, they struggle the most here. But
that's
hospitality nails it every time. So I don't know if you had any other extra points on that.
Can you maybe give us an example of a great hospitality brand, and maybe also talk about what is it that they do that sets them apart from all the other brands?
I think I have two off the top of my head, and I'm going to mention them. I think they're on another slide even. Zoku.
Oh, okay.
Zoku is in Amsterdam. I've talked about them a million times. I love that. And I've been there a bunch. They've nailed it, but of course he has a hotel background. So gorgeous branding, super consistent. The wording, just the tone of voice they use is consistent and really cool throughout. The collective based out of the UK would be another one. You just really feel the ethos of the community and they're large scale. So it's very impressive that they've done such a good job. Yeah, those would be my two. Do you have any favorites?
Not particularly, but in India, there's a co-living brand called FF21, and they have very consistent brand messaging, whether it's online or offline, right? So even when you go and visit their facilities, their brand colors are everywhere. And that's something that I find very, very interesting about, building great brands, because the consistency, to bring consistency on an online platform, I think that's much easier. But to carry that consistency forward and take it into the offline world as well, I think there's a lot more challenges in doing that. And, very few brands manage to do that successfully. And FF21 is one of the brands I feel in India who've managed to do that pretty well. And, I give them a lot of credit for doing that.
Oh, awesome. I haven't checked them out yet. I'll have to look. That's great. That's a good example. I'll check them out.
Yeah.
Okay, so make sure, so these are renderings. Make sure you guys, whether the renderings are real photos of your property in your community, that you have people in them so many times, because that's what co-living is, right? It's community. So if I'm on a website and I see people hanging out in the living room, I'm like, oh, I want to hang out in the living room with these people, or on the left, there's people outside, they're hanging out. And then, so, and again, back to that video, I spoke with the guy that you could walk through the renderings in real time, and there were no people in the renderings. And I asked him, could we put people in as they're walking through? And, he said, yes. So definitely do that. I don't know, do you have anything to add to this?
I think that's a good point, right? So let me ask you a question, right? As a co-living operator, do you think you're selling a space, or do you think you're selling a community?
A community, without a doubt, because they can rent anywhere. They can rent a regular apartment, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I think
Here, I
it's
don't
a
know,
very
is it
good point.
different
Yeah.
there? Oh, I know you guys are so limited on space, so they're just like taking whatever, right? It's like
Yeah.
very difficult to find space there.
So
Okay.
we try to make the case here that space is definitely in shortage. So people are definitely looking for the space, and space is what most co-living operators sell over here because there's a very proven demand for the space. The demand for community is not yet proven, but it's starting to show impact in the sense that if you have a great community, we're starting to see that those co-living operators are able to pull a premium over other co-living spaces. When people focus on community, they're having higher occupancy rates. When they're having like a much better community, the cost of acquisition is much lesser because referrals are like bringing in more demand. So these are all like hidden effects of community that is starting to happen over here in India. But I would say like right now the biggest focus has always been on providing space, but it's slowly transitioning into providing community as well.
No, and I know you had that great statistic and I've used it. You guys
Mm-hmm.
can see on the back end with the software, the score, the happiness of the
Yeah.
resident
Yeah.
versus them paying rent on time. What was that
Yeah.
percentage again?
So what we've noticed is that people who are more engaged, with the community. So people who are attending the events, people who are chatting on the online forum, people who are creating, who are in a sense like, who are heart and soul of the community. They always pay their rents on time. And people who are disengaged from the community, right? People who are not staying, in the property for a long time, people who are not attending the events, people who are not chatting on the online forums, these people typically tend to pay their rents much later, and there's a much higher chance of them both defaulting and leaving the place much earlier than the other people. So what we've noticed is that an engaged community actually leads to a lot of financial benefits as well.
Great. Oh, good. That's good to hear. Okay. No, I
Yeah.
love that statistic. And then okay, so now joining a VIP. So please, please, please make sure all of you guys have this on your website.
Mm-hmm.
People love being VIP. It lends to exclusivity.
Mm-hmm.
Put this on the front page of your website. Because even if you have a waiting list, let's collect the lead now. Okay. So then you guys can still keep them up to date.
Mm-hmm.
Keep top of mind. A great email subject line is VIP list update.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's going to get it open. Like, oh, I'm a VIP. Oh, they have an update for me, right? And then you can use another example is like be first in line, or, if you instead of join our VIP list or
Mm-hmm.
priority list,
Mm-hmm.
again, just making people feel special and showing them, whether that's, pictures of, which I'm going to show in a second on another slide, an example of a great email you guys can send, but
Mm-hmm.
but inviting them to your events. That is the number one marketing source, you guys, is the word of mouth and them coming to your events. So please, any event, community events, let
Mm-hmm.
your residents invite guests, let them bring their friends. And
Very
then their
interesting.
friends are going to say, wow, this is such a great, fun, like, I want to live here. Like, this is cool. Yeah. Word of mouth and referrals should be your number one. And it's your least expensive, way of getting residents, right?
Very interesting. So let me ask you maybe one quick question over here. Let's say that as of today, your co-living space is completely occupied and you don't have any vacancies, but someone signs up to be on the VIP list and they want to be a tenant in the future. Let's say that the next opening comes up, let's say 30 days down the line or 60 days down the line. In the interim period, should co-living operators potentially tie up with maybe hotels or other forms of accommodation to ensure that their future tenants have a place to stay in the meanwhile? Or would you just let the tenants figure it out for themselves?
Gosh, and again, in the States, they wouldn't be able to really do that. I think it'd be really complicated unless they have a
Mm-hmm.
sister property. So I've seen them do that where they stick them in a sister property. Maybe that's
Ah.
not, you know what I mean? And so, especially the operators with multiple locations,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and then they move them in as soon as there's an opening, that's totally fine.
Okay.
Again, where, you guys are in a different position where they, they really need a space.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know over there, is that an option?
Um, I think people are thinking in that direction, but here, to be honest, there is no shortage of supply. There's a lot of co-living spaces and a lot of options which are there. So, and once again, as I mentioned earlier, in India and I think to a good extent across Asia as well, the focus is a lot more on providing the space. It's not really the community. So people can get access to the space through other sources as well. And there's a lot of co-living companies here already. And even within the same location, there's at least like 10 different co-living companies, who have properties spread across like maybe like a 1 mile radius. So if you don't have space, people typically jump onto one of the other co-living operators who has space. But I'm sure the situation is not the same, especially in the Western world.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. And then also you guys making sure that you guys have this, contact form on your website. Again, and I didn't say this on the VIP list, please, the least amount of questions you ask, the more likely they will be to fill it out. Okay. You can tell on here, it doesn't say what's your move-in date, what's your, just the super basics, because you can always get more answers later. Okay. And just so you guys are aware, again, this is a statistic out of the States. I don't know. It's not a global statistic. 92% are using a contact us form versus calling the community. So like, please,
Wow.
millennials do not want to make phone calls at all. They're not calling. Actually, a lot of co-living operators don't even have a phone number on the website, and that's fine. I mean, ideally, you probably should. Again, 100%, all these co-living operators are 100% occupied, waiting list. That might change, that might shift as there's more competition, as the economy changes.
True.
So like, I think a phone number is a good idea, because maybe somebody wants to call you guys, but just, 92% are inquiring through the website.
Wow. That's a very big number.
Definitely. Do you guys know your number offhand, roughly, you think?
Actually, I don't, but I think the general insight that you've given, which is that younger people don't want to pick up a phone and call, and they would much rather, like just do it through email. I think that's a trend that's applicable across the world. But let me maybe ask you a question here. Would you recommend having a chatbot on the website?
Definitely. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I'm a massive fan. So Olark is a great company, chat feature. We have that on Kindred even. It's Olark, and it's $14 a month. So it's super affordable. Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good option. But again, make sure somebody's manning it. The worst is if somebody asks a question and nobody answers it in real time, but you could turn it on and off.
Okay. All right. Makes sense.
And then here are some brands. Again, I mentioned the first two already, Zoku and The Collective. Upstart is doing an amazing job at branding. They're out of Los Angeles. You guys can look at their websites after the webinar is done and kind of get a feel of how they've done their branding. And then again, nurturing the wait list. So remember, they opted in through your website, and you guys need to keep them up to date with some emails, maybe 1 to 2 emails a month, I think is ideal. This one is a ground up community. This isn't a co-living community, it's an apartment community, but here's some pictures of it being built, send some pictures of your building being remodeled if you're not open yet. Just keeping them up to date. I think that keeps them engaged and excited. So then they wait and they don't go somewhere else.
Makes sense. Okay.
And avatar. Okay, this is super important. So, obviously you're going to figure out, is my brand a premium co-living place? Is it economic? Is it a budget one? So first get the feel for your pricing and the target market. And I want you guys to create, and you can do, this is your homework, everybody, creating your ideal avatar on a piece of paper. I know this sounds crazy, but it actually will, all your marketing will flow better and make sense. And again, when you're a content marketer or when you're writing stuff, when you're imagining your perfect resident or guest, it makes it a million times easier. Otherwise, your marketing is like you're trying to get everybody, and that doesn't necessarily work. So what I want you guys to do is write their age, what they do for a living, their hobbies. Are they moving from another country? The more details, the better. Even name them and have a little picture of them on your desk, like print a picture. Just go to Google Images and find a picture of the person. I'm going to give you I'm going to read out Kindred Quarters example. So that, Kindred Quarters obviously is co-living for entrepreneurs. Ben is a 31-year-old entrepreneur moving to Los Angeles from San Francisco. He started his company 2 years ago. He works at least 80 hours a week. Every minute counts. He wants to outsource everything and now can afford to do so. Cooking, cleaning, shopping, detailing his car, etc. He's more of an extrovert than an introvert, or introvert instead of an extrovert. He loves socializing with like-minded people who are also busy hustling, and he likes, living with others that live and breathe their business. And he doesn't want to be told he's working too much, so he needs to find his job. Yeah. So that's like, and for Kindred Quarters, No, right? I know. And that's why I wanted to read it to you guys, because that's what you guys need to do. Because now all my marketing is going just specifically to Ben, right? In my head. And I'm going to attract more Bens because that's my ideal avatar for
Right.
Kindred.
So let me ask you two questions over here, right?
Yeah.
Question number one, when you're saying that position your co-living space either as premium or economic versus budget spaces. Now, let's say that me as a co-living brand, let's say I have 4 different buildings, right? And they're
Oof.
4 in, let's say, in different cities or different parts of the city. And let's say one of them is in a very upmarket area where I can do a premium product. Maybe one of them is on a, maybe not in that kind of a space where it's more of a budget offering. Now, how would you, what would your recommendation be to such a co-living operator?
Separate. Okay, great question. And that's nice that they're doing that. I see in the States, they've started with the premium level of co-living, like out the gate,
Okay.
to make sure the model worked, and prove the model. And then they're going to jump down to more budget spaces, separate avatar for each. So that's a great question. So you're going to have an avatar per building because it's a completely different avatar. The person, maybe it's for a budget space. It's a student, they're 19 years old. They're, so great question. Yeah. That's really cool that they're doing this. So you see a lot of that in India and Asia?
We are starting to see it. But I think most co-living spaces have positioned themselves either, I think if you're going to split the market into 3, most of them are either in the economic category and there are a few in the budget category as well. Although we are starting to notice a few premium brands that are starting to emerge as well. I think maybe taking a leaf out of the playbook that the hospitality companies seem to have done, they end up having different brands for different market positions, right? They'll have like a super upmarket brand, which is, which is going to be the super expensive, 5-star hotel class. And they have a separate brand, which is maybe just serviced apartments, and maybe a separate brand, which is going to be their budget play. But everything is owned by the same, parent company, just that they have different brands for different offerings. Maybe something like that might be interesting for, co-living operators to explore as well.
Great advice. And I definitely see that as the future already of co-living. Like, I think that's going to happen sooner than later where they do that. So that's great. Perfect. Let's jump to PR strategies. So, a 1-page press release, and I'm going to tell you a couple things on how to do this. It has to be newsworthy. Okay. It has to be super newsworthy. It cannot be promotional. Otherwise it will not get picked up by any of the PR distribution channels. If you guys want the press release both written and distributed, Odesk or Fiverr are great resources online to outsource it and pretty affordable. I'd say it's about $60 usually to get it distributed to the basic. If you want it to try to get like big news stations to pick it up, you're probably can spend like up to $300. I know that the companies that are raising capital, that if they've just closed a round, obviously that's newsworthy, that gets picked up easier. And again, this is region to region. I don't know over in India, like what kind of news do you guys see getting picked up on the digital like press release?
So I think you're right when you say that anything about a big fundraise gets covered by the media, because I think a lot of people are interested to read that. One of the points that we have also noticed is that whenever an existing co-living, so whenever, like, let's say if you're very early to market and you're the first co-living operator in a new city, that obviously definitely gets some eyeballs. And, or let's say if you're coming out with a very unique product, which is very differentiated, then once again, that's also something that, gets eyeballs. But what we have noticed, so one question for me from my side is that apart from, let's say, like funding, right? Like, or like I've just raised a huge round of capital. What are some other talking points that co-living operators can use to pitch a story to a media company?
I mean, you just named the main ones. Yeah. First operator in a city gets picked up really easily. I forgot about that one. You guys, but please call the news. So the news stations are always looking for a story. If you guys want to go on the news, and actually went on, I think a year or two ago to talk about co-living, which is cool. News, you'd be surprised the news to go on the news physically. They need stories, and you usually don't have to pay anybody. You can call, again, this is in the States, so I don't know about other countries. But it's worth a try, right? You just call the news station. You want to talk about, the future of living. You want to talk about, this unique way that people are living together with co-living now. So don't be afraid to do that. And that's free. So, calling actual to go on TV is another option.
Makes sense. So would you recommend that co-living companies hire a PR agency to do this, or do you think they can do it themselves?
So like, I know one that's paid like $5,000 or, or maybe they're paying like, you could pay like 3,000 a month even. And I've never done that with any of my companies. I've just done it no, sorry. I did it once. It was a waste of money. I think I paid $3,000 and like, I could have just called these news stations and I could have just pushed the press release out. Right.
Okay.
I mean, sometimes they have better relationships. So sometimes, so maybe if you guys have the budget, you could do that and you don't have the time. It's up to you.
Okay. So I think maybe like one thing that we can, recommend is that if you actually have a really newsworthy story, like you've raised some money or something, I think in that case, then you can just contact them directly because they're definitely going to run your story. But maybe if you don't have something quite so newsworthy, then it might make sense to engage a PR firm so that, they can actually still get you covered, even if you don't have something very big to share.
And maybe it's less expensive over there. How much is a PR firm over there, you think, to hire?
I think a lot of them have, so most PR agencies here, they want to be on a retainer because they feel that it's very tough to, keep, they charge somewhere between, I mean, in Indian money, like when you convert it, it's a lot lesser. It's somewhere between like $200 a month all the way to about like $3,000 a month for a retainer. And some of them do work story to story, but those cases are a little lesser.
Interesting. Okay. Got it. Perfect. And then you guys definitely some, on offline branding activities to spread awareness. I mentioned this a little bit earlier. Hosting events is huge. Allow them to bring as many friends as possible. Like I said, offer food and drinks and other things. And consider this, please put this under marketing expense. This is considered a marketing expense. Once their friends see how cool their community is, they'll want to move in too. Quick story. I attended an incredible poolside event, here in California. This is years ago at one of my friends' communities. It was a regular multifamily apartment building. There's like 1,200 units, and that's large for here. And it was great because I ended up moving in after my lease was up because I was like, whoa, they have cool events. These are cool people. I got to meet people. So definitely, I don't know. Do you have any other offline, branding activities they could do?
Nothing particularly comes to mind. Although like one co-living operator was asking me rather, saying that, when they are doing these events and people come, is there something that they can give as a, take back home kind of a gift or a return gift of some sort? And I didn't quite know what to say, but do you have some recommendations?
Yeah, maybe just invest in some cute, branded, maybe a coffee mug or like a water bottle with your community logo on it. Because they're going to use that thing every day. It's going to be in their face, the logo, right? It's just going to, again, it's top of mind. I think that's super simple. Maybe those would be $10 a piece. Maybe if you buy like 300 of them, hand those out. I love that idea. That's great. Also, please, please, please have a sign-in sheet and collect their name and email. Then add them, make sure you stay on there. We're going to add you to our email list so you can stay up to date. Again, you'll be top of mind. Those are two really good things to do.
Interesting. Okay. So just to have a quick pause, this is to all of our audience. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave it in the chat. You can either like leave it as a direct message to me or to Christine, or you can just put it on the public chat as well. All right. So Christine, now we can continue.
Yeah. Again, brands, depending on what category we put these categories together. It was very difficult. So, because some operators reached back out and said, I don't want to be in that category. I'm in this category. But, just to give you an idea of like some of the student housing brands, hotel brands, higher end. So again, these are all companies you guys can kind of check out and research. And social proof, so brand visibility, testimonials are the most important thing you need to collect from your residents, whether they're current residents or past residents. You could do this starting today. Obviously you're going to say you have the best community in the world because you're the owner. So of course you're going to say that, and you can collect these in a way, you guys can offer something, a credit on rent, a gift card, a little gift, for them to write a review. Okay, please do not say this is actually, you can get in trouble for this. So don't say, hey, we're going to give you this gift card if you give us a 5-star review. Technically, you're just supposed to say, hey, if you give us a review, an honest review, we'll give you this gift. I mean, obviously don't ask people that, maybe are mad or whatever. I would not, but I mean, especially when somebody's thrilled with your community, that's the perfect opportunity to bring this up. And so I don't know, do you have any other pointers on this?
Let me ask you a question, right? One of the common trends that we notice, this is not just specific to co-living, but to any other business as well. When your customer is unsatisfied, they will definitely go and leave a review. Whereas the ones who are very happy, they are a little reluctant to go and post a review, right? Now, obviously, like you can give them incentives to the happy ones so that they can go and write something positive about your brand. Now, I want to ask you, like, when you're getting a bad review online, whether it's on Google reviews or whether it's on social media, what should you do as a co-living operator?
Oh, I'm going to show you guys some really bad ones. I screenshot a few.
Oh, yeah. All right.
Yeah. And you guys always have to reply. Always, whether it's good or bad, you need to publicly reply. And not in a generic way. So yeah, I'm going to talk about that in a second. Okay. So what I'm bummed about, you got Google reviews, great. And that's global. You got Facebook, you got Yelp. Yelp's global, but mainly in the States. With Kindred, we're building out a really robust review system, including video testimonials. And
nice.
Because again, that's more realistic, right? Like there's a ton of fraud with fake reviews across the board, even Amazon, Yelp, Google, Facebook, Trustpilot. Like you can literally buy reviews and it's cheap, but I would not do that at all. Do not buy reviews. It is so obvious when companies do this and it looks really bad. And consumers are really smart these days. Airbnb is the best because they have actual verified reviews because people have to stay there in order to even write a review. So Kindred's going to be implementing something very similar because, we could do the exact same thing and we're excited about that. I think reviews are super important, and respond, like you said, respond to each one, even the bad ones. Use the good ones in your marketing, like as much as you can, post them, reshare them on your social media. Here, I'm not going to read these all. I have a couple and I'm watching the clock. I blanked out their names. I didn't want to get these operators in trouble. These are all in the States. So this is on Yelp, 1 star. You guys go read reviews. This is a really good tip. Read good and bad reviews of your competitors so go on Google reviews and read your competitors, because then you pick out what people care about. Like sometimes they're like, I'm surprised that they would say that, but I'm going to make sure that we do a better job. So yeah, this person wrote so much that I couldn't even screenshot the whole thing. But what's so funny is she talks about the events, she's like, so that's, again, events are important. This is another 1 star. They offer some killer community events, cheese platters, beverages, like she's super excited about the events, but everyday comfortable living conditions far outweigh the type of again, I blocked out the name. She said the name multiple times. Here's the Google review, 1 star. Here's, they give you a nice apartment, and then they don't fix things. So that's not good. So making sure you guys are, up to date, or you're just staying on top of maintenance requests, right? And fixing things. He asked, he's in the US. So it's funny, around the world, you take your shoes off to come into a home. Well, in the US, we don't really do that. So this guy told him, hey, you're in the US now. Cause the maintenance guy came in with shoes on. So I'm like, oh my gosh, like you just have to be cognizant that you guys are having people from around the world and you have to adapt, to what they're used to. So those are some interesting examples.
Let me maybe ask you like one question over here, right? Would you recommend that operators give incentives to people who have written bad reviews to take down that review?
Oh gosh, that is, like technically, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you guys are doing that over there. I think like here, I've never seen that. I mean, you get in trouble. So Yelp will take your entire listing down. You cannot offer any incentive for any review and at all. And so technically, and then if you offer them something to take it down, Yeah, I mean, that's a business decision, I guess. It's not, yeah, I guess you could do that technically. I don't think they're going to say anything, and I don't think it matters. I would pick that over writing fake reviews. So if you get, yeah, that's a case by case. That's a business decision between each person.
Okay.
I like to try to, my theory, and I owned a wellness spa before this, and we had a massive amount of reviews. And my theory was like, if we can make the pickiest person happy, we're going to make everybody happy. Because yeah, you guys are going to get reviews that don't even make sense. You know, like, I'm like, why is this person, they're just like ranting about like stuff that didn't even happen, you know, and that's the worst. But just make sure you guys are really empathetic on do not get defensive when you're replying to the bad reviews. You're honestly, you're replying more to the public than you are to that one person. I'm like, I'm going to reply publicly, but I'm going to pretend like I'm a new person looking at this and seeing how is the company handling a pissed off person. And some of these reviews are so ridiculous that people are like, oh my gosh, that person is like ranting and raving about nothing. And wow, that owner really responded in a positive manner and not like a cut and paste way. So, okay, are we highlighting? Let's see. Is somebody highlighting my screen? I've never seen that before. Okay, we're almost done, you guys. Just in time for questions. Yeah. Okay, so, you know, let's see here. Obviously, technology, you know, both Ajay and I, you know, this is our world. You know, this helps automate. Obviously, this helps manage your community if you want to scale. You know, helps give your team ways, you know, to engage, contribute. You know, the better the experience, the better the community. So obviously the future is technology. The future is paying your rent on your cell phone and with a couple clicks. So I think streamlining, whether you use our services or not, like you have to implement technology in some way or manner. Any questions on this or comments?
Nah, so let's just quickly move on. I've got a couple of questions coming in, and I think we need to finish up as well. So let's just move on and, you know, go to the other slides.
Perfect. Yeah. So a couple last things, you guys. Some of you guys already know I have a weekly podcast and YouTube show with operators from around the world. It's almost been 2 years already. So we have like over 100. You know, so when you guys are sequestered and, you know, can't come out of your homes right now, unfortunately, you guys can binge watch and pick and choose your favorite operators, you know, to watch. And then I just wanted to offer anybody a video consult. So it's 30 minutes. You know, again, if you want to, you can email my team. We'll set it up. Anything co-living related. Like, we really want to help people, especially in this time. Just you know, figure out again how to thrive, not just survive during this very unique time. So there you guys have it. So we can go back on video if you want, and let's answer questions.
So I've already started getting a couple of questions that people have been sending me. So let me maybe ask the first one, right? In general, do you have any rule of thumb on how much co-living operators should be spending on marketing? Let's say, like, as a percentage of, let's say, the total revenue that the company makes, and assuming the total revenue is the sum of all the rents that their tenants are paying, would you have any ballpark number to give them a heads up?
Yeah, and I know you guys have a different number. So typically it's 6%. I think 6% of gross revenue here in the States is pretty decent for marketing. And that's all your marketing, print, digital, all of it.
Including your staff cost as well?
Including the staff to implement 6 to 8. I'd say 6 to 8% to be safe.
6 to 8%. Okay, so that's all
gross
including,
revenue.
Right?
Yes.
Okay, so that's about a month's rent, right? 8% works out roughly about a month's rent. So you're suggesting that's potentially how much operators should be looking at spending from the perspective of marketing. All right, okay, that makes sense. I think, like, typically as a co-living operator, if you're going to work with real estate brokers, I think you end up spending a similar amount, and, you know, you don't need to invest anything upfront, right? Like, you just have to pay the broker once they've brought the tenant. And typically it's a 2-week rent commission, which is paid. Is it the same in the US as well?
Oh, interesting. So I think in New York, New York was really the only one using brokers. So we don't use brokers anywhere else. And then I think they're shifting that over there now, finally. So no, you're not paying a broker. So they're going straight to you.
Interesting. Okay, cool. Let me ask you maybe one more question as well. Someone has asked me, what is the ideal split in marketing budget between online marketing and offline marketing?
Whoa. Okay. I mean, I would push more online because it's more automated. It's all connected, right? So, you know, they inquire through online. You could probably, everything could be digital from the start to finish, you know, obviously
Okay.
tying into the PMS CLMS system on the back end. So I would say digital for sure because it's more automated.
All right. Also, because maybe the tenants that are going to be living in co-living spaces are much younger, and it's more likely that you're going to catch them online than offline.
Definitely.
All right. Okay. All right. So tell me this now, when let's say you're a new co-living operator who's evaluating an entry into the co-living space, right? So you're thinking, should I set up my own co-living space? Do you think people can potentially do this as a side gig, or do you think an operator should be all in on this?
Oof, yeah, all in for sure. It's hard to do it as a side gig. And most of them, to be honest, start inside. They're working the front desk or they're living on site. Like they're really engaged in the very beginning, maybe even the first 6 months, I would say. Again, I don't know, maybe you have a different answer, but I've not seen it successful if they're doing it on the side. I don't know anybody doing this on the side.
Interesting. So we have noticed a couple of people doing it as a side gig, but it's not really scaled. It's a reasonably small operation. So if you're maybe like going to do like one building, I think maybe like you can spend a few months of your full-time effort, but after, you know, you will reach an initial level of occupancy, I think you can just hire a good community manager and operations manager to take it forward. But apart from that, I think it's okay. But if you want to scale the business, I don't think you can do it as a side gig.
Okay. And I know we always laugh about this, and I want to tell all the viewers because they might not know, again, especially if they're from the States. So like, what's a small operator to you guys?
So in India, maybe like 100 odd beds.
Okay. And what's average? What's the average number of like a medium, large size community?
So, so we have, let me put it this way, right? So the minimum entry size, if you're going to be in the co-living business. So first of all, co-living is not unique in India, right? As in we already have paying guests, which is similar to boarding houses, which is a common concept in many other parts of the world. Where there's a mom and pop, you know, who take a building on rent and then they just convert it to shared accommodation. That industry has been around for like a couple of decades now, and that's a very big market already. So typically in those buildings, it's about 50 to 100 people per building. A lot of the new purpose-built facilities which are coming up, I think they are starting to touch 500 to 1,000 people in one building. So very, very big facilities. And we're also starting to see, so the few more are under construction, which is about 1,500 to 2,500 people who are going to be accommodated in one massive, super big facility. So that's the scale of one project. That's the scale of one building that we're looking at.
I love that. And so you said 500 is considered small. So 5 is considered small. So you're like 100x us over in the States. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. All right. So let's maybe move on to a couple of more questions, right? So I think there's one question here. We have a mother brand, but our products are really different. Should we create 2 different brands and spend more in positioning those brands, or maintain a common brand with, you know, different objectives?
Wow. So you know who's doing this in the States is Common Living, if you guys want to research them. So Common Living is like the basic co-living brand. And then Kin, they did launch a completely separate brand called Kin, K-I-N, and that's for families.
Oh.
So if you guys have the budget, totally spin off a different brand. I think that's a good idea.
Oh, interesting. So, you know, one of the things that we notice in a couple of other industries is that you have a child brand, but then you say by parent brand, right? So you're going to say like Kin by Common, or, you know, something to the extent where you show very clearly there is a tight interlinking between 2 brands, but then you position clearly that, hey, this is going to be a separate brand in itself.
That's great. I love that. That's perfect.
Yeah. But we've also noticed a lot of brands which just have 2 different brands, and on the face of it, they're not really connected. Right. So let me give an example, right? So I think in the hospitality industry here in India, there's a big brand called Lemon Tree Hotels, which is more premium than anything else. But they have a sister brand called Red Fox, right? And it's not positioned as Red Fox by Lemon Tree, so you don't see them mentioned together in any way. But physically, they are always close by. You know, and to the extent where sometimes in the same hotel, in the same building, you might have 300 rooms under the Lemon Tree brand, and, you know, you have a separate entrance on the side, and you have another 100 to 200 rooms under the Red Fox brand, right? And if you enter from the east, it's Red Fox, and if you enter from the west, it's Lemon Tree. So we have examples of that as well. And
I love that because they can share staff. That's probably why they do that. You can share so many resources. Maybe the laundry is being shared, the staff's being shared. Like if you can, it's like economies of scale if the buildings are close enough. I love that.
Oh, so we have one more very interesting question over here from Connor. So he's mentioned, hey, co-living is a unique industry where your customer is also a big part of your product, right? So he's trying to make the case that the community is what you're selling. So apart from filling rooms, getting the best possible residence is crucial to have in your community. And I think his question is somewhere around, can we do something like that to attract the premium tenants? Ooh.
Again, well, you have to think the current, again, this is why word of mouth is so important and referrals is so important, because again, you guys have your ideal avatar. Hopefully you do your homework. Then the ideal avatars move in, and then the ideal avatars usually have friends that are similar to them and they bring them to the events. So that's literally how you're organically building. So just so you guys know, the first residents in are going to set the tone across the board. It is pivotal that you guys spend time curating that first group of residents, because it's very hard to change that tone.
I think that's such a tricky point, to balance that, because when you're just starting your co-living, you really want more people to come in, and you don't want to curate in the beginning because you just want to increase your occupancy levels, right? Because you've got to start paying your landlord, you've got to start, meeting your expenses. So at the start of your co-living journey, it's going to be so much more difficult to be picky amongst the residents. But that is actually going to count in the long run and give you such a premium brand because of all the other reasons that you've mentioned. So I think it's such a big trade-off, right? Like, how does a co-living operator make that decision?
Well, you guys, please pre-market. I know it's difficult when the building's not open, you can't show it. It's super important. The day you guys sign that agreement, whether it's a master lease, profit share, whatever you guys, when you sign that agreement of like, it's done, we're going, please start pre-marketing. Do not think you're going to market starting the day of. Like, don't do that either. Market as early as you can.
I think that's a very interesting point. I don't see a lot of co-living operators doing that. But it's a very good tip, from the day you know that this building is going to come to you, whether it's a month later, 6 months later, a year later, but you need to start marketing now, and you need to start collecting a potential set of tenants who can occupy the place on day 0 or on day 1. And I think a very interesting point, definitely, yeah. Super. All right. Any other questions? I think maybe we can wrap up. We're touching about the 1 hour mark. So audience, if you guys have any questions, do feel free to, leave it on the chat. Maybe like any questions that comes up right now, I think maybe Christine, we can just, answer it and send it out as an email after the show. So maybe I think that brings us to a wrap, on this webinar. So quick summary on the next steps. By maybe in the next few hours, we're going to send out, the video to this. That's something that people can view if they want to have a look at what we shared today. Number 2, we're definitely going to send out links to the Co-Living Hub meetup that's happening tomorrow, so that people can definitely come on board and be part of it. We're also going to be sending out a link to that Medium blog post that Co-Living Hub has done, so that all co-living operators can use that content and potentially renegotiate their deals, with their landlords. I think both of that is going to be super useful. Christine, any last notes to our audience today?
Yeah, sorry, the webinar is not tomorrow, it's Thursday. So in 2 days, Thursday. You guys. Yeah, Thursday. Okay. Mark your calendar, same time. Yeah, no, I think you nailed it. We'll have those blog links to the blog posts we've done. Just, again, anything we could do to support you. Guys, excited for the guide you guys are putting together. If there's any more questions, that helps us too, like how to address, what's going on right now with the coronavirus. We're happy to support. We're in this, you're in it, I'm in it. Like, we're in this whole world every day. So we're happy to help you guys, but we'll get through it for sure. I'm confident of that.
And I think we're going to come out much stronger on the other side. And I think for all the co-living operators here, so both Christine and myself, we spend pretty much our entire day speaking to co-living operators for some reason or the other. So we have a lot of visibility on what other people are going through. So if you guys just want to have a quick 15-minute, 20-minute call, just to say, hey, this is what we're doing. Does that make sense? If you just want to soundboard, what's happening, if you want some kind of opinion, or if you just want someone to hear you guys talk, we're more than happy to do that. So do feel free to drop a note, and we're all in this together. So I don't think either the house monks nor Kindred is going to succeed if the co-living industry doesn't succeed in the long run. And I think all co-living operators, enablers of co-living, we're all in this together. So if there's any way that we can help, do not hesitate to reach out to us.
Definitely. Ajay, and thanks again. Like, it's so fun to like have, pretty much the whole world covered between the two of us. I know our ethos and the way we look at co-living is identical. So
Yep.
thanks for having me on today.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Christine, for being here. Thanks to our audience for turning up in large numbers. We know that this might not have been plan A for most people, but like great that people are here. Hopefully, people found the content interesting. Hopefully, they found it actionable as well. We're going to circulate whatever we promised to circulate, and I think we can bring the show to a wrap. Thank you so much, guys. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. Depending on whichever part of the world you're from. All right.
Okay. Bye.
All right. See you guys. Bye.